Hi guys, it's Russell. Welcome to the channel, and today we're going to be adding some color to a model through the use of vertex painting. Vertex painting is a way to quickly add color to a high poly model without needing to UV unwrap, texture paint, or procedurally texture your model. It is focused more on speed and is arguably not the best way to texture or color a model, but it is fast. And before we get started, I would recommend that you just double check the distribution of vertices throughout your mesh. You can do this by tabbing into edit mode and then just zooming in a little bit, and you can see in and around the eyes there's quite a dense population of vertices as compared to the rest of the face. This can kind of create inconsistencies in the vertex paint. So to fix that, we can go over to sculpt mode up in the top left if you're not already in it. And then over on the right, up top, you can go to the remesh. And just clicking on the eyedropper, you can check the current resolution of your mesh. In this case, you can see it's about 0.06. The lower the number, the higher the resolution in this case. So in this instance, I didn't want to lose any details, so I went a little bit lower. I went to 0.035, and this is going to increase the resolution of my mesh, and you can see down low the number of vertices jumps from 233,000 to 800,000. It's probably a little bit high. This did end up slowing down my computer a little bit in the vertex paint, but you can see here, tabbing into edit mode, that the distribution of vertices is a lot more even. So this is better for the vertex painting. Okay. So going over to the material tab, we're going to click new and rename it skin. So we're just going to click up on the texture paint tab there. And then up on the top left on the editor type, we're going to change it to shader editor. Rearrange the boxes as you see fit. And then you can change it to either the look dev material preview or the rendered view, whatever works best. And then up on the top left here, we're going to change it from texture paint to vertex paint. Then over on the right in the vertex data panel, we're going to go to the vertex colors menu, and there should be an automatic vertex group created called Cull or C-O-L. I'm going to rename this skin. And then over on the left in the shader editor, you can Shift A, search vertex, and you should have a vertex color node. And then in a little pull down there, you can pick your new vertex group and then plug it into the base color. Okay, up top, we're going to pick the base color of our skin. And then to fill the vertex group, you press Shift K. Up on the tool settings, I'm going to go down to the color palette, add new, and then add this new base color. This is going to be important and useful when making adjustments. Okay, so next we're going to pick a reddish color. This is going to be applied to the nose, the cheeks, the eyes, and the ears. Generally, the middle part of the face is reddish in color, and the top part of the face is whiter or yellower in color. Just checking that the fall off and texture and everything is consistent. And now you can start applying the red. I do have symmetry on, as you can see. And the fall off I've made quite soft by selecting custom there and then flattening the curve to follow this shape. So it makes it a little bit softer and the edges aren't as hard, which I personally prefer when doing this type of painting. Okay, so just painting the middle part of the face here red and then moving in onto the eyes and the eyelids. Just going in around the mouth now. This guy looks like he has a pretty bad rash, but we'll fix that later. We're just going to lay down the foundations. Okay, now I'm going to pick a kind of dark purple color. I'm going to go in and around the eyelids. And really fill out the rest of the eye socket. Ooh, this guy looks rough. Looks like he might be trying out to be clown. Okay, so adding the purple to the palette as well, just in case. And then now, like I was saying before, usually the top part of the head is lighter in color, a little bit yellow. It's generally reserved for areas where the bone is closer to the skin. So the skin on the forehead and the scalp is generally a little bit closer to the bone and therefore a little bit lighter. Okay, so I've colored the top of the head with yellow and the middle part and around the eyes with red and purple. And now I'm just going to use the blur tool to soften some of the edges a little bit. You can see I probably went too high in the poly count of my model, and so things are a little bit laggy. My computer is not that good. Okay, so I've just blurred all around the edges, and now using the color palette, I'm going back to the paintbrush, and I've selected the base color that we had before, and with a low strength, I'm going in and around the eyes and around the cheeks just to kind of lighten up where I might have gotten a little too heavy-handed with the color before. This is obviously going to depend on the look that you want to go for. I was going for a semi-realistic kind of stylized look to match the model. So just softly going around just to lighten up the red, lighten up around the eyes and the mouth, and be a little bit more subtle with the colors. They're probably a little bit too strong at first, but I prefer this method to go a little bit strong and then come back with the base color to kind of lighten things up a little bit. Gives a little bit more control and a little bit more feel. Okay, so more adjustments. Kind of softening up the edges. Using the blur tool as well. Okay, so that looks okay for now. Now I'm going to add a new vertex group, and I'm going to call this lows. And I'm going to use this to kind of darken the bottom part of his face in and around the eyes and up on the scalp to kind of simulate the beard stubble, as well as to kind of darken up the eyes a little bit because I felt like they were a little bit too light. Okay, so Shift D to duplicate the vertex color node, and then switching the group to from skin to lows. And then Shift A, mix RGB, and connect the color to the color 2, and then the blend mode to multiply. Now generally when you create a new vertex color group, it's going to copy over the previous vertex color group. So as you can see, I'm just connecting the color of the new lows vertex color group to the base color. And in order just to reset it, I'm going to select white on my paintbrush and then Shift K. So that gets rid of the previous vertex color group's information. Okay, and here, like I was saying before, I'm just using kind of a dark gray in and around the mouth to simulate kind of that beard stubble look. And then I decided as well just to take it up in and around the scalp to kind of simulate a shaved head for this character. And now I'm using the blur tool just to kind of soften the edges as before. Blur tool is pretty handy when vertex coloring. Then I also decided to use it in and around the eyes to kind of darken his eyes up a little bit. Okay, over to the blur tool just to kind of soften things up again. Looks like he's been huffing paint all night, but we'll fix that. So just disconnecting that, reattaching. Now the blend mode switched up on me, so I'm just going to switch it back to multiply. And you can see now there's kind of a subtle stubble look to his scalp and the lower part of his face, which is nice. And you can play with the slider to kind of accentuate that look. Okay, so I'm satisfied with that. Over to the vertex panel on the right, I'm going to create a new vertex color group, and I'm going to call this bump. Just going to click on the little camera to make sure that's the group I'm working on. Then Shift A, I'm going to type attribute, and in the name I'm going to type in bump. Shift A, search, I'm going to add a bump node and attach the normal to the normal and the color to the height. Going to decrease the distance to 0.1. You could see there that again, the previous vertex color group's colors had ported over to this new one. So just connecting the color up to the base color of the principal node, I'm just going to reset this vertex color group again by going white and then Shift K. So that gets rid of the previous color group's information. And then now I'm going to use a darker color to create a indentation. I'm going to try to simulate the look of pores on the face. So to do that, I'm going to go down to the stroke panel and increase the spacing and jitter to 150% and 2. I'm going to change the strength to 0.1, make my brush small, and just run it over the face. And you can see that it kind of creates a random assortment of pock marks that can kind of simulate pores on the face or give some texture to the face. Usually the nose and the cheeks in and around the eyes have sweat glands and pores and bumps. So here I've just spread it over the cheeks. I felt like it's a little bit too strong, so over on the left in the distance I cut it in half, 0.05, just to make it subtle, just to give a little bit of texture. Okay, and then next, moving on to the roughness or shininess of the face, generally in and around the eyes, the nose, and the lips tend to be a little bit shinier than the rest of the face. So to achieve that look, we're going to add a new vertex color group. We're going to call it rough. Create a new vertex color node and select rough. And connect it up to the roughness, and then you can see now he's a lot less shiny. And that's because the whole layer is almost white. So the lighter the color, the flatter the shininess, or the less shiny it will be, and the darker the color, the shinier it will be. So I'm just going to reset this vertex color group, Shift K with white, maybe lower it a little bit to give him a little bit of a shine. So just a little bit gray and Shift K. And you can see he has a little bit of shininess back, connecting that back up to the roughness. So we have a good base now. And now to add some shininess, like I said, the darker the color, the more shiny it will be. Going up to the tool settings, and I'm going to increase to 0.8. And because we changed the spacing and jitter for the pores, don't forget to change that back to 10 and 0. And you can see here, painting on the face with the black, you get quite a shiny look. And that's a little bit too shiny for me. So I'm going to Control Z and pick a lighter gray than before. Just redoing the spacing and jitter to 1 and 0. Lowering the strength a little bit. I want this to be subtle. And so with 0.1 and the light gray, it's a little bit more subtle and you can have a little bit more control over the look. And so making in and around the eyes, the nose, the cheeks, and the mouth a little bit shinier. Here I've picked a slightly darker gray to give a little bit more shine around the eyes. The eyes can be quite wet. And then going even darker for the lips. This will be up to your discretion. Just playing around a little bit more with that, making the lips nice and shiny. Okay, so that's given a little bit more of a dynamic look to him. And then finally, we can add a subsurface vertex color group. Adding a new color group and then Shift A, search attribute, and then type in the name. In this case, I've named it sub. And this will give a subtle effect. So just connecting it up to the base color. I'm going to pick a darker gray. Generally in this case, the lighter colors on this layer are going to show the subsurface color of your choice. So with the subsurface, generally in and around the edge of the ears, tip of the nose, the eyes, and the lips tend to have a little bit more of a translucent look to them when light shines through them. It's a subtle effect. So in and around the eyes, tip of the nose, the ears, and the lips. I'm just using a lighter gray, and then using the blur tool to soften things up. So once you're happy with that, go over to the shader editor, click the color into the subsurface input of the principal node, and then going over to the principal node, changing the subsurface color to whatever suits your needs. You can see playing around with the color. You get a slightly different look. It's subtle, but it gives a nice waxy kind of realistic look to the skin. So there you have it. Easy way to add some color to a high poly mesh of your choice. I hope that helped. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Thanks.